Hey everybody, what's up? No Arrows again. This time I'm going to be doing another Throwback review, and it'll be Dawn from Joseph Michael Linsner. The first miniseries of Dawn, called, also known as Lucifer's Halo. And this came out from Sirius in 1995. Let me put these over here. And if you don't know anything about Dawn, she's like this, she's this goddess of birth, or rebirth. Or not, no, it's both. She's a goddess of birth and rebirth. And she, you know, does goddess stuff. This isn't the first comic to feature her. She first appeared in Cry for Dawn, which was an anthology. It was an anthology of stuff by Linsner and some other creators, but mostly Linsner. And she was just kind of the mascot of that. But then there was Drama, which was a one-shot. But this is kind of the series that everybody remembers. Like, this is sort of like her at the height of her fame, you could say. And the comic is about this guy here, Darian, and it's set in like this sort of weird, kind of surreal, sort of alternate New York. It feels like it might be in the future, but it's just so strange. Like, it's hard to relate it to anything we know at all. It just has a weird quality to it. It's extremely violent. It's a very violent place to live. He basically goes out and he like fights every Saturday, I think. Like, they have these weekly fights in Times Square. And, you know, he just goes out and loots people and takes their money for, like, that's what he does for a living. And it's about him and Dawn, who he's romantically entangled with, and she helps him find his destiny. Which I'll leave, you know, sort of vague, because the nature of his destiny isn't something that you know at the beginning of the comic, so I don't want to spoil it. But it also involves Dawn here. She's got hair kind of like Jessica Rabbit. I don't know if you probably already noticed that. But it involves her being recruited by God here. Or he goes by something different in this comic. What is it? Like, he's not known as God, but I mean, he's God pretty much. And he recruits her to go to hell to bring back Lucifer's halo. Here's Lucifer there, and there's his halo, and yeah. It's a pretty interesting story. Linsner obviously is a really good artist, and I'll get into that in a second, but his writing is also not bad. His dialogue is extremely over the top, and sometimes sometimes he misses big with it, and sometimes, you know, he hits it out of the park, so to speak. Like, there's like, the quality of his writing kind of fits with the sort of grandiose themes of the comic. Like, it feels very big. Like, he writes a very big script here. But and it doesn't always work, but I mean, it kind of, the story kind of sags in the middle, I feel, without going into too great of detail. But I don't know. With that out of the way, I will say that 80% of the reason to read this comic is the art, so, you know, you can have as much fun or maybe even more fun just looking at the incredible detail that Linsner puts into his drawings here. He colors the book as well, and it's just like so, like his use of his palette is extremely he knows how to use different tones to convey different moods. Like the whole comic isn't really dark, and the whole comic isn't really bright and happy. Like he has an incredible range with his coloring, which is like so rare to see. And this is like his parody of Lady Death that he squeezed in the back here. Dawn was lumped in with a lot of the bad girl comics that were going on at the time, and like even then, it like the term bad girl comics was sort of had a negative connotation. So of course Linsner, along with everybody else, kind of denied it. They were like, "Oh no, this isn't a bad girl comic, not at all." But in this case, I agree. You know, it's not really a bad girl comic. It's just like, because I mean, she doesn't. I mean, mostly because Dawn herself never gets her hands dirty over the course of the book. Like she's just there. It's just a it's just a comic with a pretty girl in it. That's all. But yeah. And the art is just so sick. I mean, look at his faces too. I mean, he really brings out a lot of personality in the faces he draws. Like, this is a good page. You can really see, you know, how the characters are feeling and like their, you know, emotions and all that. A lot better than you can determine what I'm trying to say. He is better at conveying a point with characters' faces than I am with speaking. And that's something to be impressed about. Here you've got all these splash pages in a row. Damn, look at that. Look at that. Or sorry, it's not a splash page, is it? That's a spread. That's a double spread. But yeah. And the story also has a really cyclical nature, which is interesting. Like, there are things mentioned in the beginning of the story which come back at the end of the story and really give a human touch to, you know, Darian and Dawn. And I can't really go too deep into that, but I mean, you'll see what I mean if you decide to read it, or if you already have read it. There's a lot of long-haired blonde guys in this comic. You have Darian here, God, and Lucifer all together. And yeah, I mean, it's a good comic for sure. Art is excellent. Story isn't, you know, story is good enough to give the art, a boost, a kick in the pants. You know, it keeps the art going. It keeps you wanting to read rather than just flip through it. And like I said, though, possibly some pacing problems here. But overall, it's really hard to dislike a comic that looks this nice. I don't know why these throwback reviews take so long. I'm already at 10 minutes here. It's hard to know exactly what I want to give this comic. I feel like I want to give it an 8 just based on the art, but you know, I'll go down to a 7. Still a good score, very good score. Definitely one of the better, you know, I don't want to say bad girl books, but one of the better, you know, 90s attractive girl books that you can come across. And it's pretty cheap too, so you know, pick it up if you see it. And I think you'll definitely like it. Especially if you like stuff like that, you know, gods, relations between heaven and hell, you know, different realms and all that. If you're into that whole like Sandman thing, definitely try this for sure. Yeah, recommended.